out again yesterday, and today we're here with only 2 members and myself, which is minimum, so we do form a quorum. But it is not a good look for us to be having the permanent secretary and the team from the Ministry of National Security leaving their daily routine to come to the committee meeting. And this is what we have for them. And, you know, we're 49 minutes late in calling the meeting, but what I've found is that the interest in the committee's meetings and what members need to understand is that these meetings are as important as the responsibilities that we have in our constituencies. This forms part of why we were elected, and this is one of the most important committees of the Parliament itself. We're going to be having a hectic schedule in this financial year, as last year, because of the COVID and other reasons, we were not able to have as many meetings as we would like to. Usually during this time after the budget presentation, there's a little lag, but there's so much work to be done and reports that we have been given. So we will have our work cut out for us. So we have circulated a schedule. We have not gotten much comments on it. I know Member Hamilton have commented on it. Outside of that, we haven't gotten any more. I would love us to discuss the schedule itself and some other issues that I am proposing for the committee work schedule. Suffice to say, thank you to the 2 members that are here, and the show shall continue. So, welcome, members. Apologies for absence. So far we have Member Lee, Member Tamika Davis, Member Sibley's, and I know that Currencia Morrison said that she'll be late. She's on her way. Are there any more apologies for absence? If not, we move on to item 5, confirmation of the minutes of the meetings held on January 19th, 26, that's 2022, and February 23, 2022. These...
Chair, I reviewed the minutes. Some of the issues that I had were corrected in 2, but for the meeting of February 23, we have just a few amendments. Okay, on so page 4.
We'll take the amendments. Page 4.
The last paragraph, the sentence that starts, she mentioned the grade 1 individual learning profile. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 14, 15 lines down. It speaks to the Proficiency Pathway Initiative, but instead of an N, it has a M. So we just need to change the M to N. And
okay. Initiative, not initiative.
Right. Okay. And the 2 sentences after that starts, Dr. Troop told the committee that the ministry invested in resources to assist teachers. I think that should be plural, and we should probably put a comma after that.
Okay.
And then on page 5, the paragraph above closing remarks, where it mentioned Member Holness asked whether there could be online programs. That line continues to make reference to Jamal, and it is the Jamaican movement and not the Jamaica movement.
No, go again. I'm not following you on that last one. Member Holness asked whether there could be online programs
for adults who needed remedial training, but who do not want to attend institutions that would be equivalent to the Jamaican movement and not Jamaica movement.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you, Member Hamilton. Can we take the minutes as being amended? Seconded by Member Hannah. All right. We move on to, so the approval of the minutes is also taken as such. All right. Item 6, any matters arising from the minutes? No. I think we got an update from Hart. Yes? Which will be circulated, coming from the meeting that we had with Hart NSTA. So that will be circulated. It came in this morning, so we'll circulate that. All right. No other matters arising. Let us move on to item 7, which is a review of the report submitted by the Ministry of National Security. Can you invite in Ministry of National Security, please? Please. Let me welcome Permanent Secretary Mr. Correctional Williams and the team from the Ministry, well, from the Commissioner's Office and the Ministry of National Security. Let me apologize on behalf of the committee, sir, as you see that we are very few in numbers and we needed to have a quorum before we brought you in. This is not the best way of starting the new financial year, but I know that you were on time, so I'll apologize on behalf of myself and the members of the committee. Well, surely for those who are present. We'll start out by having you introduce your team, and if there are any opening remarks, you can go ahead and make those opening remarks, and then we'll open the floor for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning again to members of the PAAC. Of course, I'm Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of National Security. And along with me are some of the brightest minds in national security in the Caribbean. So to my immediate left is Deputy Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, Next to Kevin Blake, we have ACP Warren Clark, and to Warren Clark's left is ACP Leonardo Brown. Also joining is SSP Desmond Brooks, and from the civilian side of the JCF, Mr. Devon Kongwoon, who is Director of Corporate and Special Services within the JCF. So once again, thank you. So last year, we had provided some information to the PAAC based on a request from the committee, and I'm sure members would have had some time to reflect on those. So we have updated much of that information and submitted it to the committee. But broadly speaking, the information covers a number of areas, looking at the overall crime statistics within the country, and associated with that, some of the expenditures in some special areas. But in terms of an overall position, just to say, the period that we would have covered from 2016 up to the end of March 2022, and we show a general trend of a reduction in major crimes across the country. And that continues into this year, where so far in 2022, major crimes are about 7% below where they were last year, continuing a trend that would cover the period that we present. And when we speak of major crimes, we are covering just about 6 categories: murder, shooting, robbery, rape, aggravated assault, and break-in. So we have provided some fair amount of statistics on that. We have also shown the clear-up rate in these major crimes. And overall, we have seen about roughly a near 40% clear-up rate. And by clear-up, we mean that those crimes for which a suspect would have been formally charged, or let's say the offender were to die before being charged, those are included in the clear-up rate. So I think in terms of an opening remarks, those are the points I want to make, that yes, we are seeing those reductions in major crime, and we continue to invest significantly in national security architecture, and that covers a number of areas: the facilities, mobility, technology, as well as the welfare of the men and women of the force. So I'll just pause here following those brief comments, and we'll take questions from the members. Of course, as I said before, my team members here, who are actually all members of the JCF, who would be a lot more off-key with much of the type of operational issues within the force, they will be here also to respond to any of the issues and questions that the members may have at this point in time. So, Chairman, I'll just pause at this point, and we'll take any questions that you have.
Members, Member Hamilton, and then Member Hannah.
Thank you, Chair. P.S. I'm going to go straight into the category of crimes cleared up, because when I look at the figures, well, I was looking at the previous report, but having sight now of the updated report, I realize that the figures have changed somewhat. However, looking at the overall clear-up rate over the period 2016 to present, we still have quite a significant number of cases that have been unsolved. What measures are being considered or explored to address these unsolved cases, especially since, based on the trend, we add to these numbers yearly? We call them what, cold cases? How do we, or what are we planning to do to address all of these unsolved crimes?
Okay, thank you very much. Morning, Mr. Chair, members. Right, so yes, we have seen a reduction in clear-up. One of the points I want to make, though...
Sorry, Dr. Blake. Let me just ask, since there are no name tags, just for the purpose of answer,
my apologies.
Just introduce yourself when you're about to address. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Kevin Blake, Deputy Commissioner of Police, in charge of Force Development and Logistics for the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Right, so we do see a reduction in terms of percentage, marginal though it may be. However, one of the points we want to make, though, is that a 40% reduction in murder equates to in excess of 600 murders being cleared up each year. And if you just permit me to just explain a little bit what that means and why we want to look at the numbers themselves. And I would also want to give the assurance to the committee and the public at large that there are some things that we're doing now that we'll see an improvement in that and stuff. But in terms of a number of murders, so sometimes we find ourselves making comparisons between our colleague, counterpart, law enforcement entities in other jurisdictions, and we look at a 90% clear-up, for example, in some jurisdiction. Why is it that they can achieve 90% of their murders cleared up, and we only achieving a 40 or a 50% each year? Whilst it is important that the higher the number clear up, the more likely it is that when an offense is committed, someone will be held and charged. Whilst that is so, the reality is also is that a person, so if you take a person, let's look at murder, for example. A person is on the ground, a deceased individual, circumstances not known. And it cannot mean any jurisdiction, whether it's in Jamaica, similarly in another country. It is equal effort that it takes to find out the situation around this incident and put someone before the court. It's a lot of effort that it requires. There's no less effort that is required here in Jamaica than it would be required elsewhere. And so a jurisdiction with huge investment, much greater number of resources than we have, can only investigate not a 90%, but 90 of 100 murders. We're doing 600 of 1,200 murders, for example. 600 of 1,200 murders. So each murder, each incident itself must be looked at. And the number, whilst we are aware and concerned about the percentage, the number itself we need to pay attention to as well. Then we need to ask ourselves, I don't want to name any particular jurisdiction, but for jurisdiction that has 100 murder and clear up a 90%. If you look at the resources that go into clearing up that, right? The other day we had a press conference, and there was a policeman there who by himself investigated over 20 murders with a success rate of 13 of those murders where he actually put someone before the court. Nobody else, nowhere, no other jurisdiction, that level of demand is required on your individual officers. The point we're making is that the sheer number itself is just too great. And whether or not there is indeed the possibility of improving a capacity to successfully investigate 1,200 murders, to get a 90% of 1,200 murders, we need to ask ourselves the question, why is it our counterparts is not able to do that? Probably the best we've seen in anywhere this side of the world is 360 murders being investigated in a single year with any police force in a particular year. We're doing 600 and stuff. So I just want to hastily make the point that we're not pleased about no decline in trend like this is satisfactory to us. However, the challenge do exist. And one thing we have to understand, again, is that our jurisdiction is unique. Our jurors, our victims, our perpetrators, our witnesses share the same space. And these things usually occur in areas where, unfortunately, people, the citizens, don't have the resources to protect themselves as some other citizens would have. Now, it is in this circumstance, in this situation, that our detectives have to go into these communities, and even with the risk to the victim, to the witness, convince a witness to come forward, and not just to write and tell the police, because contrary to what people believe, we do get support from the citizen. Whether or not they come to court is another thing. So it is in this environment that our police officers have to convince these members to actually come and give statements in these and testify before court and go back in that same community with the likelihood that that person may be bailed and be in the community with them. And so sometimes what we need to do, and what our officers, we as leaders, have to continuously remind our officers and show their appreciation to the effort that they make in putting 600 persons. And a clear-up of 600 doesn't mean 600 individuals, you know. So when you have a single murder and 5 persons committed that murder, when you arrest the first person, that is cleared up. But it takes equal effort to find the other 4 persons. And it doesn't give you another clear-up. So 600 doesn't mean it's only 600 persons. You may very well find 800 persons. And everyone is a case by itself. And so that's why we look at, as the Commissioner says on many occasions, the marginal reduction can happen. Regular, normal policing give you a marginal reduction. What we need dramatic reduction. We need significant tools that we can keep the number down. Because I'm sure the JCF has demonstrated a capacity, even with the challenges that we face, to investigate 600 murders in any 1 year, even with the resource constraint. It means that if we are so fortunate and blessed 1 year to have only 600 murders, very likely that we can have 100% clear up.
DCP, based on what you said just now, the response, I totally agree with you, and I get the perspective that you've brought to the fore. But you touched on the community policing initiatives, and I'm aware that the police, the JCF itself, cannot single-handedly put a stop to our criminal activities. So we understand that citizens have a role to play as well. There is, in your report, mention made of the neighborhood watch. I recall growing up that, it was a very active initiative then, but currently I am not personally hearing anything much coming out of the community watch initiative. Is the existence still prevalent? I mean, how many do we have? What are some of the issues that we are facing within these communities to maintain that kind of cohesion? And how do you think initiatives like this can help you?
Thank you very much. Very good question. Yes, we continue the effort with Neighborhood Watch. Again, as we have to continue to be an agile police force, because situation and environment changes frequently. And so there have been challenges sometimes in establishing it. The police usually take the lead role in trying to establish neighborhood watches, right? And there have been times in the past when it has been much easier. Some things we believe they may contribute to the difficulty is the lowering of interaction between persons within communities. You find a lot of people now social media, so people are now more influenced by the social norm of persons outside of their community than within the community. So this community sense, that's community, traditional community group and stuff that we usually have, we find a lot of that changing with the youngsters coming up, and that has posed some amount of issues. There have been some challenges as well in some communities in establishing neighborhood watches, especially where you have communities where persons may return return residents and with a different level of socialization. And so that, again, sometimes we have challenges with that. Notwithstanding, though, so important is it that it is one of the key pillars of our plans. Every single plan, every divisional command, it is mandatory that the community involvement in the plan and the community initiative, so much so that the model that we have created for our planning model, and we are proud to say that it is a model that we have developed, and it's called the IIOII, and this planning model helps to constrain or to set scope and boundary within which your plan must be established, and so you don't stand the risk of leaving out anything which is important. The initial I is for intelligence. We need to consider the investigation, which is the next I, the operation, our information, how we communicate with our publics, but very importantly, our intervention. And this is under the intervention now. Our officers are mandated to ensure not just neighborhood watches, but I'm sure you'd see in the response, which is not exhaustive, a number of other programs. And we have several programs outside in conjunction with places like UNDP and other entities and stuff. I'm sure you would have heard about our domestic violence intervention centers that we have established in communities. That is a very active program with some stakeholder groups. We have programs partnering with the PSOJ, private sector. I don't want to make any announcements at this time, but you'll see it coming. So this is a critical part. We understand that policing has to be done with the approval of the society. So we can't go and impose policing on people. They have to be part of it. And this is one of the things that we are very strident on. But yes, we do face some challenge sometimes with getting some of these programs up and going.
Do we have a number of the neighborhood watches? Do you have a number of what is existing now? Island-wide.
I don't have it here, but we can get it probably before the meeting is out. Right. And I just want to make the point that so important it is that we have, and you probably would know, a branch whose main core responsibility is around this, which is our Community Safety and Security branch. And a branch in the JCF is a formation that's headed by an Assistant Commissioner of Police, and it has national span. And so that's all they do. And so, yes, it's something that we know is very important and we take seriously. Notwithstanding that, sometimes when the environment changes, technology is introduced, things change, COVID came about, we have to, recalibrate our strategies.
Good morning, PS, and your team, Deputy Commissioner Dr. Blake, ACP Warren, Clark, Brown, Brooks. Have I left out anyone? It's a pleasure to see you and to greet you. I want to, on behalf of myself and others, say that we are aware of the severe adversity that many of you are under and the day-to-day responsibilities that you have, not only as the administrative staff within the ministry, but certainly for boots on the ground. And it is a difficult process in a difficult situation, in a difficult country, with sometimes very difficult people who don't understand all the things that go into it. So thank you. Having said that, I want to preface my questions by lamenting some statistics. And I lament them because it affects all of us, from the baby on the breast to the elderly who have lived their life in this country. At one time, Jamaica was categorized as a second capital in the world for the highest murder rate. We are still categorized as the country in the world with the second highest murder rate for women, meaning that in all the countries, Jamaica comes second for the murdering of women. Last year, something that I read from the police force from the JCF said that we are murdering 13 women per 100,000. And the World Health Organization says that if you define an epidemic, it's actually 10 per 100,000. So you can see that we are murdering our women past epidemic proportions in this country. It's sad because when you look deeper into the statistics, you will actually see that it is a very small percentage of our population, 18% in fact, between the ages of 18 to 35 years old, who committed 75% of our murders in 2020. And that is startling for a number of reasons, because it represents that our youth, even though youth is defined by persons who are under 30, between 18 to 30, it is our youth who are perpetrating the majority of our murders, assault, rape, and you have the statistics better than I do. But what concerns me is when you pull apart the data even more, I saw where 80% of our women, or girls, in fact, under 18, who say that they have been faced with violence, have been raped. 1 in every 4 women say that they have been affected by intimate partner violence. 30% of our women say that they've experienced physical violence. And when I look at the report, and Member Hamilton speaks to her concerns about the clear-up rate, and I've heard what you've said, Dr. Blake, about the extreme manpower that has to go into clearing up any kind of crime in this country. And I acknowledge that, and I would have to agree with you, because sometimes still when you're going to the police station, them take out a big book and then bend the page and crease it. We definitely need for you to have better technology in this country. Can't be that the criminals have smartphones and all kinds of different devices. And sometimes when, as an MP, my local police are asking me for basic necessities, and it really is an indictment on how we treat our police in this country. But I digress. I want to go back. The reason why I raise these issues is, we have an unrecognizable war in this country. Whether we want to accept it or not, Dr. Herbert Gale says, look, what we're experiencing is an unrecognizable war. We're at war with ourselves when you're looking at the data. And even though between 2016, from your report, to 2022, you've had a clear-up rate of basically 40%, when I go into what you have, you've been able to clear up in 2021 rape by 70%. You've been able to clear up aggravated assault by 76%, but still murder, shooting are under 50%, closer to 40%, closer to 30%. And that is where we need to target. But we can't keep putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. And when I look at the money that we're spending, the improving of responses and the improving of investigative capacity, which is what you speak to Dr. Blake, which is the heart, has the least amount of money. So the first question I want to ask is, what do you believe we need? And I'm aware of the private sector programs, and we can talk about that, but what do you believe we need? Because this is the most critical thing that occupies Jamaicans, people abroad. We're losing some 4% of GDP because of crime, in terms of investments as well. So this is really important. What do you think we need to really ramp up our investigative capacity and responsiveness? I don't see where you speak about, and I know you have it. I know you have the neighborhood watches. I know you have other community policing. But if our women are being attacked the way they are, and they are the nurturers of the population, that 18%, 18 to 35, who are really responsible for raising our children, I don't see any kinds of programs for parenting, because this is not going to be solved overnight, and perhaps not in another generation, but we have to solve it somehow. And I'm not seeing anywhere in here where you kind of have the targeted intervention programs that are going to be critical for arresting the development of creating a criminal, because criminals aren't born. So the two first questions I have for you is, this figure, I believe, is woefully inadequate. I want to hear what you think. And where are our parenting programs? And do you believe that those are necessary?
Excellent analysis of the situation. I just want to indicate that, and I think I can speak on behalf of the members here, that we share these concerns twice. Once as a citizen and twice as a police. It's my country, but also it's my job. And so we do think about these things. And you're correct. You're correct. One of the things that we need to do, though, we need to together look at what is it the challenge is, and we'll face that. Gangs, guns, and gunmen, as the commissioner keeps saying, as long as these people can operate with a level of impunity, it creates an environment that makes it extremely difficult for the best of minds to police. We have what it takes as a nation to change that. Other places have done it before. We just have to be serious about it. And I'm glad you made the point about Band-Aid. We have done that a number of times. And sometimes, unfortunately, the police are forced to use Band-Aid because of what we get to work with. And that's why we said that marginal reduction cannot be tolerated. We need more drastic reduction. The normal policing strategies, the normal policing will not see that type of reduction, and with the tools that we have. And let me give you an example. So sometimes we mention about at-risk youths. There is a category called at-risk youths, and they are indeed, sometimes they are gunmen themselves. But there's hope. And changing that mindset is about changing the environment and the influence around that individual. And we need to pay attention to them, parenting, stuff like that. And we have led on a number of these initiatives, too many for me to even discuss here. We have documents and strategies. And in time, very shortly, you'll see a program that will be launched with the JCF and the private sector looking at exactly. And so we initiate the first schema for that was developed by us because this is what concerns us. Right, so if you look at an example, so we have to change the environment itself. And we have to make that distinction between the at-risk youths and those deliberate intended social deviants. You don't change them overnight. You don't change an environment and they're going to change immediately. And so we are very targeted and speared in our operation. And if there's any doubt about that, within the launch of any SOE, for example, I'm going to the discussion of SOE, but just for example, if you look at the launch at any SOE, instantly murders go down, instantly shooting goes down, instantly the record is there to show. What does that mean? It means we know who, we know where, and we can go. We can be surgical, but the tool to keep them there, when you have a firearm act, for example, when you have a firearm act, like the one that we had before, where it's basically a slap on the wrist. And by the time the matter goes through the court, the person would have sometimes spent so much time in custody that by the time the conviction comes, the court has no choice but to release the person and stuff. And so within 2 years, that same man is back on the street again. And if you look at our rate of recidivism, you realize that we're not creating new criminals every day as contrary to what people believe. It's the same set of people every day. Yesterday, one of my intelligence officers was there talking to me, and we benefited from an intelligence assessment. And, he was saying, there's an individual that came up. He said that person keep coming up, used to come up often in his intelligence report. When he was a corporal, the man is a senior soup now. And that person now becomes an old man. This recidivism, the same people. So when you have the effort that it takes to find a man with a firearm, for example, with the risk to the police with a deadly weapon to take that man off the street, take him through the court, convince witnesses sometimes, secure a conviction, put the man, and then 2 years' time or a couple months' time, you have that man to deal with again. That's better use we can make of the police time.
Dr. Blake, in one of the reports that we were given, it says there are, there's 725 illegal guns and 12,528 rounds of ammunition that are seized by the police annually.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is it's difficult to convict someone with an illegal firearm. How can we stop the illegal firearms from coming in?
Thank you very much.
So I want you to answer that, but also go back to the substantive questions.
Thank you very much. I like the line of questions. I do like them because our strategy around illegal firearm is a multiplicity approach. We look at how, it was yesterday we had that discussion in following up. We would welcome you. We're recruiting. All right, so we look at importation of firearm, and this means collaboration with our external partners. It was Sunday that I came back from some other country, looking at tying up that type of relationship, continue that type of relationship, because the firearms are not manufactured here. So we look at that. We look at securing our borders through our control ports, and we have seen a number of interventions at our control port. We're coming from recommendation from our assessment of vulnerabilities in these spaces and a response by the state to secure that. Yes. So we've seen that happening. We also now are looking also at the uncontrolled ports, how these weapons get in, right? And in collaboration with our JDF counterparts, our Coast Guard, Marine, and with the asset that we're putting out there without going in too much into our capability, our capacity and stuff. So we're doing that as we speak. But in addition to that, we are holding the people. We are holding the people with guns every year, every time. A few months after, we hold the same person again with the immense effort to hold them the first time, to take them through the court and stuff. And so we are very hopeful of this new firearm act that is coming. We're very, very hopeful. We smile when we see the possibility of taking that individual off the street and don't have to worry about him again for another 10 years. Then we can. So these are some of the things that we need to look. There were anti-gang legislation. Remember, this idea about at-risk youths and the need economic opportunities and stuff. Of course, there are some. But the deviants who cause this problem are hiding under that description. They're hiding amongst that label of at-risk youth. What we do, we try to find them, and what we want and ask for the public for support is to support the police in making the distinction between those individuals. Because even some of the at-risk youths, we do have to take them in sometime. We have to arrest them, put them before the court. But they are influenced. What we want are the influencers. And they are not many. They are not many. But the thing is, the tool that we have, and even with the tools that we use and successfully put them there, in short order, we have them to deal with again. And so I don't know if you answer your question. I know you spoke about women. I know you spoke about... Sorry.
There's a question I want to follow up on in relation to that response you gave just now in relation to the conviction. So we're aware that persons, yes, they get convicted of criminal activity, especially the gun-related. But the other issue for me is when they're behind bars, they're still perpetrating crimes, which means that we have a serious lacuna, gap, a link that needs to be addressed. So how are we going to tackle that aspect of it? Yes, they can be convicted and sentenced to 10 years, but if they're still able to perpetrate crimes, then it's neither here nor there whether or not they're in or out. So what are we doing about that?
Very good. And so we operate in a security ecosystem where we depend on every agency that involve in that ecosystem. That's why we have a justice system, and we are part of it. So we take the relay button up to a point, and we expect that the persons who run the next leg continue. It's unfortunate that in a confined space, a space controlled by the state, that individuals have the freedom to continue to perpetuate. Every country faces that problem, we probably more so than others. And that is something that we look at. I can assure you, though, sitting on some committees that I've sat on, that includes the correctional services, that significant work is being done on that side, both on the legislation as well as the technology, the equipment, and the procedures to address that. With that said, whilst it is true that they can commit offenses whilst behind bar, it is always better for them when they are free. And so, yes, the offenses are committed and they coordinate and stuff, but I do not believe that it is done with the level of effectiveness that they would have had if they were out there. So even whilst we're fixing those aspects, we still need to get these perpetrators. We need to remove that freedom from them. Yeah. At least you're in a confined space. You have to hide things. We can search, we find a phone. We have many things that are done inside. And I say we are talking about the correctional services. When a man is out on the street, free to roam and rubbing shoulder with your witnesses and driving fear in individuals, they don't even have to fire a shot sometimes to drive the level of fear and frustrate the effort of our investigators. It can't compare in any way whatsoever than when we have them. So we are mindful of that, and we're looking at fixing it, but notwithstanding, whilst we do that, we still need to get them behind bars.
And we need to not make prison so attractive, because based on videos and other little paraphernalia that we see on the outside, it seems to be very attractive to people. So we need to cut down on that aspect as well. But you also mentioned witness protection. How effective is that program here? Do we use it on a regular basis? Do we have funding for it? Enough funding?
Well, let me just pick up from the witness protection. And yes, it is quite effective. We have a number of people under the witness protection program. It's a quite costly program because the local costs, there are times when we have to have these people overseas, and that adds to the cost in terms of accommodation and so on for them. But we have, I think the budget for witness protection this year is about 500 and odd million. It's an increase from where we were last year, significant increase, which is a demonstration of the seriousness to which the government attaches the importance of witness protection. So that is a critical part of the crime-fighting architecture. But on the correctional service matter, you'll recall last year we actually did some amendment to the Corrections Act to deal specifically with contraband entering to the correctional facilities. That is a first step towards trying to address this matter. A more comprehensive look at the Correction Act will be undertaken. That process is already underway, and the punishment have been reflected in the amendment to the Corrections Act last year. It's pretty significant, and not just talking about inmates, but also if there are correctional officers who are aiding and abetting this activity, severe punishment that will be imposed once they are found guilty of any such offense. But just to go back to a matter that Member Hannah mentioned earlier in terms of the parenting, and whereas there's a parenting commission which doesn't fall under this ministry, but nonetheless we are working along with Ministry of Education and some other MDAs to go at this problem. So when we talk about at-risk youth, many of these youth are actually in the school system. And so we have a program, a social investment program, where we begin by targeting 25 schools, which we have selected those schools mainly in the Zozo areas. And so it's not just about reaching to the youth in the school, but also the parents. So we started about 3 weeks ago started having some social fairs at select schools. The first fair was at St. James High. Then we went last weekend to Haile Selassie, and this weekend we'll be going to Albion in St. James. And when we have these fairs, it's a joint-up effort. So we'll have us, National Security, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, we have the RGD, we have PICA, several agencies coming together at this fair, because what we want to be able to do is to engage those parents. So whereas we are having the intervention with the case managers and so on for the kids in the school, we're also having this program to engage the parents. And we have a certain targeted group that we're trying to get through to them within the next few months. So we'll see more of these activities taking place. As I said, we have the select schools, and I think we'll go also outside of the schools. But we thought that as a first step, it would be better to go to easier way to get to the parents by doing it through the schools. So that project, that program is significantly underway, because we recognize that if we don't get to the parents, then we only will get part way through the kind of solution that we are seeking.
Thank you. Thank you so much. P.S., Dr. Blake and their impressive team, good morning. We don't envy the job of the police at all. I don't imagine myself ever dealing with what you face every day, and in light of that, we commend you, and even your family. We also want to put this out there, that we thank them for allowing you to serve us and to serve us so well. Bishop O'Neill Russell, I saw this article in the Gleaner. If you are going to tell a youth to put down their scamming, you must have a solution to fill that void. In this war against money, the lure of money, the power of money, how do you match up in this war? Considering that it may very well, to the minds of our young people, be worth the risk. And I want you to talk to us today in a very real way, right? We know the policy position. We know, yes, about crime fighting and so on, but when you're going to look at a youth who is 22 years old, and he is able to afford a Range Rover, luxury, he can't imagine doing that from a 9-to-5. What are the chances of a police force against that type of lure? That's question one. Two, when we consider the culture of the gunman shift, I know by now all police should be aware of the gunman shift, the song, the culture, right? And that you go to any dance and any party, that probably may be the #1 played song, and it gets the most money pull up there, gunman shift. And in this culture, women and teenagers, remember Hannah, once upon a time you would say, no, women are not a part of it. They're in on it. Teenage boys, 13, 14 years old. And considering what you have mentioned about the rates of recidivism, how effective do you consider your methods and your strategy to be? I heard your frustration, Dr. Blake. It was very palpable, right? And do you believe that somehow our laws, or failure to amend some, enable criminals? I'm even going to push the question further. When you consider INDECOM and other human rights group, do you believe that the police is being given basket to carry water? Talk to us in a very real way. And the final thing, my final concern here, what is the pulse of the neighborhood? The member spoke about Neighborhood Watch. Have you found the culture to have changed, where once upon a time the neighborhood was fully on board? Are you now dealing with a neighborhood that is somehow different because the criminal is the benefactor? They don't see the criminal as a bad person at all. It's that criminal, they'll tell you, who helped to send, Andre to school. How does the police, how are you managing on the streets in a real way? And I'm a member of parliament for a rural constituency. Both members are too. All of us are. We are concerned, and I think I can speak on behalf of the members, about policing in rural constituencies, because we realize that in some instances you have a one police car or a two police officer. However, these rural constituencies are dorms for criminals, and I just believe that rural spaces have to become a big part of the crime-fighting strategy. I hope that, gentlemen, you will do well with even attempting to answer half of my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for your kind words. We talk about culture many times. We have to always remember, we as a people have to remember that culture emerges from practice. And bad social practice and antisocial behavior, when left unchecked long enough, it now becomes an emergent subculture and culture. Sometimes we leave some of these things. We're too tolerant sometimes as a people with some of these things. And so we have identified some things happening and emerging, and the signs are on the wall, and we scream as police officers, but then the police really making excuses. And so you talk about violence in music. I sat in this very same house and did a presentation when we were looking at the anti-gang legislation. And we literally begged. We know what the consistent imploring of your members, people that revere, people in the communities look up to community leaders, and that's normal, social phenomena. When these community leaders decide to take an antisocial path, and we don't rein it in as a state, it's not restricting freedom of expression. When you're going to sing a song, say you push a cutlass down an old woman's throat, that can't be entertainment in this very same house. And when we played some of the music, members, because they're aware of the music and they rock. And then we stop the music and translate what is being said. And people are like this in this very same house, and we beg, we say, listen, at least regulate the music. Because we as police officers, we see what happens. There's a reason why so many of our entertainment events end up as shooting incidents and murders taking place and stuff like that. Huh? And so we need to be and so it's unfortunate that these things weren't considered. I mean, we are the persons on the ground, not to say that we have all knowledge of everything, but we are 154 years old. Many of us have served beyond 2 decades, 3 decades, doing the same thing every day. This is what we do. We probably understand it a little bit. And so sometimes when we ask for some things, and it's unfortunate that we allow it to fester, and now it becomes the result. Now it can be described as a culture, unfortunately. We talk about lottery scam is another one. We were very tolerant of it because it seemed as if it's a victimless crime to persons in Jamaica. The danger with lottery scamming, unlike other crimes for profit types of crime, the barriers to entry is so low that anybody can be part of it. For you to be a gang leader and a gangster, you don't just get up tomorrow morning and decide to be a gang leader. Crimes for profit happens usually in spaces where there are opportunities. So you find them in town centers, in places where people exchange money, where they can rob people, extort, etc., etc. Unfortunate though, but it's less challenge for policing because these are structured environments that we can properly police. When you take that type of crime and put it in the hills of St. James, there's no deployment that you can put up there to deter that type of behavior happening around the back of a whole house and a shed. But the danger of such, the danger to the society of that type, and we allow it to fester and fester and fester till it becomes this, now we describe it as a subculture, unfortunately, again. And so what we have to do, it is not about just policing. We cannot negotiate with persons with this type, and economics is not an issue of economics. People building houses, huge mansions and stuff. It's not survival anymore, it's greed. It's greed. Yes. It's not for want of economic opportunity. It has gone beyond that. It's actual greed. And the state must demonstrate a level of intolerance to these type of things. I hope we as a police force have demonstrated that with the tools that we ask for, that we can deliver on the job. And I've seen, and so we asked for the lottery scam. Unfortunately, when it just came about, we really didn't take it very seriously, so people were getting off with light sentences, and we had to send people, extradite persons, and to a country that they take it more seriously. We've seen a change in that, and we've seen more serious penalties and stuff. But we need to send a signal to these individuals, as a state, not as a police force, as a state, that this is not okay. And that signal must be sent unequivocally. It is not okay. When you decide to take that part, every time you scam someone and you purchase a car, someone else is suffer. So it's no sympathy on you that, oh, well, you're struggling. Somebody else is now struggling because at the expense of your deed. And so and as a nation, right now, you want to do business online in the United States, most government sites blocked. The country, the 876, they call it, the IP address coming, this side is blocked because of decisions made by some people who believe that the path to wealth and economic success must be an overnight thing. Right. And so again, I share your concern, and I'm glad to hear this concern coming from outside of the JCF, because what it is telling me is that the things that we need, we have the willingness. I already know that as a country we have the capacity, but we have a willingness and an intolerance to this. And I do have hope.
Follow up, and then Member Hannah.
Follow up. Dr. Blake, I'm not going to allow you to get away without answering this question for me sufficiently. I'm looking at recidivism and how frustrated the police force is. This criminal who you just locked him up 6 months ago, this is the same person who is back on the street terrorizing others. But I'm pushing you even further. Do you believe that the police, that you people are being given basket to carry water in light of the human rights group, in light of Indicom? Because when you catch a criminal, 2 toes, you have to let he's out there. And you know, I heard someone mention that the criminals out there, them seem to have the force orders. They know what is happening. And it's almost as though they are showing off because they know that, all right, I'm going to do this crime, I'm going to spend 8 months, I may soon come back on the road and continue. And then you will hear Indicom screaming, right? What's the relationship between you and Indicom, by the way?
All right.
Right, I'm getting into that.
Sometimes it's not for want of avoiding the question. Sometimes when I reach my age, things perish here quickly. And so I didn't remember. I really wanted to address that. I really wanted to address that question. Recidivism, no problem. Insecurity is insurmountable. The minds that we have in this country, we can fix all of them. And so let's go back to the Firearms Act. Just the Firearms Act itself. This new Firearms Act, when passed, the issue of recidivism, not going to be eliminated, but it will be far better. Minimum mandatory for gun of 85% of the murders are gun. How can we not treat it seriously? This new legislation demonstrates that it is being treated seriously. And that's what we've been asking for years. Long in coming, but it is here now. So I do have hope. I don't think any of these criminals are smart enough, are smarter than anybody, any member of the state. I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to it any at all, period. The next thing about Indicom, I love Indicom. I love any oversight body. Because what it does, it tells the public that this is who we are, rather than we saying it to the public. And let me give you an example. 2 years ago, we asked Indicom. So the argument is police extrajudicial killing. Everything is called extrajudicial killing. Let me just tell you what a police fatal shooting is. You only can shoot if your life or someone else's life is in danger. And that's it. It means, therefore, if upon investigation you believe a charge is not to be laid, then it means if you did not shoot, possibly you or someone else would have died. But the initial shooting is always labeled extrajudicial, unfortunately, and people don't get updates. So every time what they hear is the initial shooting. And so in the mind, etched in the mind of people is that we are a set of people that leave home with our nice 6-year-old going to school, kiss daddy bye, to go out there to kill people. I'm serving 20 years. I've never met one of those police. Indicom statistics, I think 2 years ago it was, when we asked for the number of these incidents, upon investigation, where there's a recommendation for a charge. And I'd like to ask a question if you can just guess what the percentage is. And people want to say probably low, so they go 25% because they want to say it's low. It is 0.1%. Less than 0.1%, 0.8 something percent of the incidents, of the hundreds and thousands of interaction between police and hostile individuals, less than 0.1%. After, you know what an Indicom investigation looks like, unlike a police investigation? When Indicom investigate a matter, 60% of the investigation is handed to them, unlike the police. When a body is on the ground, the police have no idea. Nobody is obligated to tell us anything. No witness is obligated to come and tell us. The perpetrator doesn't have to come and write a statement and give you. When Indicom is investigating, the police, we are mandated to say what happened, to give a statement, to answer questions. Much of what involves in an investigation is available to Indicom immediately. We know the circumstance, we know the weapon that was used, we know why it was shot, we know who the person is, we know who did it. And that's where Indicom starts from. And I believe in the capacity of Indicom. I believe they are great investigators. And so when Indicom does an investigation with all of that tool provided to them, with my officers who are mandated to support the investigation, and they come back and tell me that this was a clean shooting, I have no choice but to believe them. And 99% of the time they come back and say that shooting is a clean shooting. I recall, a clean shooting means that somebody would have died, or the police or a citizen. But that statistics doesn't get to the public. If we had said that, then, well, the police is hiding something. It is Indicom that said it. And so I want Indicom to stay. We appreciate Indicom. All we're asking is do not make a sensation out of an incident, because tomorrow morning, that police officer in that traumatic incident has to be briefed, encouraged, and go back in a community from which he doesn't come, to protect the citizens inside here. And the challenge on us as leaders is to tell them why it is important, after people calling for your head, to go out and protect yourself and protect the citizen once more. And so we invite the investigation, we encourage our members. If there's disciplinary action for not supporting it, we administer those disciplinary action. Go and support. You have no choice. The legislate, the act says that. So you have to. What we ask is that for every time when you have one of those incidents on the scene, be responsible. Don't come on a crime scene before an investigation starts and tell the public all of that, because we don't have the benefit. And sometimes by the time you have an update for the public on an incident, they don't even remember what the incident was. The damage is already done. At the end of the day, we're talking about a police force that stands between a state and anarchy. We need to ensure that mentally our members are sound.
Dr. Blake, I want to take you back because you still have not provided enough information for me. And the reason why I want to go back is close to 75% of murderers or persons who commit murders more than one time say that they were tortured by their mothers, repeat offenders. And I was reading one of Dr. Herbert Gale's studies. The other information which you alluded to about murders and we spoke about earlier, Jamaica is at civil war status because it is 30 murders per 100,000. We're at about 46.2 murders per 100,000. If it is that you are speaking about investigative practices and the need for better investigative tools to have the clear-up rate facilitated for murders and shooting, especially for the illegal guns, the budget that I see here is not appropriate. I would put it at that amount. I asked you, what would it take for us to really have the proper investigative capacities across the country, in the rural areas, in urban city centers, and there are really 5 parishes, St. Catherine, Kingston and St. Andrew, Hanover, Westmoreland, which one is the other one? St. James. And those are the 5 parishes that we really need to drastically improve. But the other thing, and I keep going back to it, our mothers, our women need the kind of intervention programs, because if young people at a very early age are being tortured by their mothers, which helps to breed an antisocial, aggressive, traumatized young person, and we're seeing it in the violence in the schools in many instances, and I don't think a criminal isn't born. All of us have youngsters that come to us as members of parliament. When I was Minister of Youth and Culture, I used to see them all the time for uncontrollable behavior when the mothers carry them to the police stations. We need, and I see 6 men sitting there, and all of you have mothers, all of you, I'm sure, have children, wives, spouses, and you recognize that the hand that rocks the cradle really rules the world because they're the nurturers. What can we do for our women in this country to help nurture them, protect them, help them to parent better, give them the kind of capacity and coping mechanisms? What can be done in the police force to make sure that when a murderer comes and talks, they don't say, well, I was tortured by my mother. I don't feel I had the right home environment. So tell me about the investigative. What do you need? And then tell me what you're doing. It's not only about parenting. It's going to take some time, but what kind of systems we can put in place for our women in this country?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, sometimes I just don't remember some part of it. So forgive me if I... in terms of, I'm going to touch the issue of investigation first. I just want to reiterate that whilst we're not perfect, and I'm far from being satisfied with our capacity to investigate, we must give credit to our members for what they have done year after year, and it takes a lot. It's almost humanly impossible to do what they have done. So that said, there's room for improvement, significant room for improvement, and some of that improvement come by way of technology. You mentioned it, and you're spot on. As a matter of fact, when Mr. Brown, June, I think we should start rolling out our case management system. So a massive enterprise-wide application that helps investigators. It helps not only organize an investigative case file, but give the supervisors the opportunity to have persons account and to know when there are anomalies quick enough. We can't await audit and inspections and stuff as we have been doing traditionally in a manual system. Immediately when something goes awry, we need to know right away so that we can, because when you have persons overwhelmed with work, it is normal human behavior sometimes, if not properly supervised, for them to rest. And there is where lies the raindrop within which these people dance, and so where we need to improve. This system that we're putting in place will help
Dr.
us
Blake,
improve that.
all of us go with police station, and all of us have a good relationship with our community police in our constituencies. And even sometimes you just have an incident and you have to stop at a police station, right? Whether you have a car accident. And I can tell you, as a Jamaican, I don't feel good about how some of our police stations, I know some have been fixed up, mine in Claremont, mine in Monique, for instance, nice paint job, etc. But there are little things that helps the emotional, physical, mental, not only morale, but stability, passion to come to work, right? Just even the way it is laid out. The fact that sometimes I was at one police station and they had to transport a gun from one place to another place. The car never have a siren to try and get it down to the other place in time. These are things that we need to fix quickly. These are things that in the system of bureaucracy should not impede the work of the police force. This is what we're talking about. Policing has to happen fast. When we watching, and I don't mean to sound granular, Currency and Tova, but when we're watching Netflix and all of these crime shows, and you see the things come up and people are move the screen, and then when you go to your own police station and you have to set to your ASP and the big book, them take out the big book and you have to bend the page and come. I mean, nothing interactive. They should have iPads, everything, and I hear your case management system. These are the things. When I have a goat thief up in Bensington, right? And sometimes the police is one police car and it is in another place in the rural area. It can't reach up to catch the person we come across from Clarendon to come over to St. Anne. These are the things, Dr. Blake, that we're talking about. And we want to make sure that your jobs are easier. So stop dancing around the thing. We know what you're facing. We see it. We're not here talking to you because we want to get in. We know the information. We see it. We feel it. When the police come to us and say, boy, we need like a cable, or we need a fridge, or we need this, we know. Our gas.
Can I respond quickly? All right. No, we're not prettying up the thing. I'm trying to respond to the question as I come, but I'm happy you made this one. Everything that you've mentioned, you see, are the things and the justification for the formation that I now lead. Our Force Development and Logistics portfolio, the newest portfolio headed by a Deputy Commissioner of Police. Everything that you're talking about are the things that keep me up at night. Those are the things that we do every day. Now, it so happens that the manifestation of much of these technology that we speak about happens it is the last mile. It happens at the station. To get that computer at the station and to remove that big book. What the public doesn't see is the work done behind the scene. And let me tell you what is done behind the scene. Here we have Mr. Leonardo Brown, Assistant Commissioner in charge of our technology branch. You mentioned CSI. We just came off of an audit, ISO 9001, quality management system. 8 of our facilities, including our technology branch, including our technology, including all those nice fancy things, our cyber security operations center, fingerprint, all of those things. We were recommended for certification, which will happen in the next 2 weeks. No other police force will do that. Certification for ISO quality management system. So the point I'm making, Mr. Chair, the point I'm making is that those things that you speak about, we do have them. We're far advanced. What we're doing now is giving the endpoint connection so that people can use the back end. We could easily put a computer in the office. But that computer needs to speak, the computer in Negril needs to speak to the computer in St. Thomas. For that to happen, the back end, our data center, we have one of the best data center here. And I don't want to go too much in capacity, so I don't want to go too much in capacity. But it is being done, so we're not dancing around the issue. This is what we do. Yeah, man, we have done that. So when I said, sorry, Mr. Chair, that's one final point. When I said we are now implementing a case management system, that case management system has been undergoing because your system, remember, our establishment is 14,000. We're one of the largest police force in the English-speaking Caribbean. It means English-speaking. Right, but the point I'm making is that implementing a system of that nature to manage millions of records of data require a lot of configuration and back-end support. Much of the work, that's where it takes place.
I will stop you a second. P.S., give me a second. Because I'm looking at the face of your other colleagues. And I sit down up here in a little pain. And I tell you why. Because the question was asked by Member Morrison if you felt that you have been given basket to carry water. And, you know, as long as you have been in the force, many of you, and as long as I have been in the House, many of the things that you're hearing, and I felt like I sort of I don't know if I was losing my mind because I kept hearing in my head, as more things change, the more they stay, they remain the same. And each time that the ministry comes and senior officers come, we still hear the same things. Yeah? And reason why I would imagine she asked that question, because we in this House, and no matter which administration, I'm not saying it is a GLP administration or PMP, is that we've been hearing the same thing, the case management. I've been in here 10 years now, and I've been hearing the same thing. Yeah? And it is good we can say it's better late than never. But that little voice in my head that keep on saying that more things change, the more they remain the same, is because when I look at the budget and just the increases on the capital side. But when I look at intelligence services, combating serious and organized crime, MOCA, investigations, the increase is really on the compensation of employees side that would have taken in the increase in the 4% or whatever there is that was given. But then when you look at the other aspects, travel expenses and subsidy gone down. In every line item that I look at, there's a reduction in travel expenses when gas gone up. You understand? Now,
just be careful how you interpret that reduction in travel expenses.
Explain it to me.
Right. Is an accounting change that the Ministry of Finance has made. So that will run across all ministries where travel, like fixed travel, they have moved that out of travel and into compensation. So it's an accounting change.
But even then, and when I listen to Dr. Blake and listen about the stress that the police is under.
You still haven't answered the question.
Right. But the point
there's still no increase.
No. The one of the things you have to remember though, and when you look at 1 year versus another year like that, because the year you're looking at where you see a reduction, there would have been those one-off payments. You know, coming out of the earlier agreement signed between the government and the Federation. So you'd have had that one-off total about $2 billion. So that would be one-off, so you'd expect to see a reduction.
And that would come in the revised.
Right.
So if let me use investigation. You have a travel and expense and subsidy. The estimate for 2022-23 is 51 million. If I am to look at the approved estimate for 2021-22, it's 69 million. You want to go further across? I mean, just look at it. Yeah. So, in counter-terrorism, CTOC, traveling and expenses for 2022-23, 60 million. But for the approved estimate for 2021-22, 71 million. So I know that the revised would have taken in what would have been revised for the financial year last year in compensation. But if I am to look at year to year, there is a reduction. But the general point I'm trying to make, is that you say you have a police force of 14. How much?
Well, the establishment is 14,000, but in terms of actual employment level, just under 12,000, about 11,900.
It's a little above 12,000.
And what would you require for you to be able to man the police force properly? Because you have an intake and you have those who are leaving on an annual basis.
Right. So we have a program to achieve that establishment by 2024. It requires a recruitment of 1,250 police officers each year, taking into consideration attrition. Last year, for the past 2 years, we have reached that target. Last financial year, we recruited 1,262. So we actually met the target.
And so, how much you have leaving average on an annual basis?
About three. No, it used to be 500, but since COVID, we see a reduction in that. So it's about average 300.
About 300.
Right.
So you have a net of
approximately
about 900.
900
you have a net of 900.
And that will take us to the establishment, the 14,000 establishment by 2024. Mm-hmm. So there's a deliberate program doing that. In doing that, we had to increase our capacity in terms of additional training facilities, and we had, because of COVID and social distancing, we could not accommodate the same number of persons in the same space. And so we have acquired a few other properties in order to do that. So last financial year, we managed to achieve that, and we are sure we'll achieve it again this year. Again, this is one of the pillars under our transformation capacity building.
The challenge that I have.
But just to make the point, though, because I hear the narrative that, year after year, we're hearing about these things that will be put in place, case management, and so on and so forth. One of the things that we must recognize when we're talking about technological advancements, the state that some of those facilities were in, we really couldn't put in equipment in some of those facilities. So deliberately, we went on a drive over the past 4 or so years. We were actually upgrading, constructing, and actually rehabilitating many of these stations. We have done over 100 so far, and some more to come. In some instances, totally new facilities being constructed. Last week, we broke ground in Little London, and we'll be doing some more. So what I'm saying here is that, for example, the station, the big book that you mentioned, Ms. Hannah, I can tell you, before long, the big book will be a thing of the past.
Mr. Williams.
No, I wouldn't come here and say it if I didn't know it's going to happen.
Mr. Williams, I'm not taking away the advancements that have been made. We are a country at war. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
And I find that when we sit in this house sometime as legislators, when we want to make things move quickly, we find a way in making them move quickly. Right? And I'm just saying that we see the numbers going up. When I look at a community like Beverly in my own constituency, The most a man fight for is because a man take where a man fuck. Or he might drink and drunk, or animal eat somebody crap. And we had a shooting in there. Mile Gully police area, we don't usually see murders. We have been seeing it every year consistently now. We have been, so the point I'm making, yes, we are getting there. And that's why the question that the member asked, are you given basket to carry water? Because some things are just taking too long. I see we are spending money on P-STEB. And we see them roll out in style. We see photographs on social media when them launching. But I am not seeing any difference on the streets where order is concerned.
Well,
yeah, so when we make all these grand announcements and we come and we do what, and as eloquently as Dr. Blake, right? And then when the public not feeling it, you get blamed, we get blamed. That don't mean not happening, But at some point we need something like a shakana to reverse even the opinions and the what is happening out there. That's the point I'm making. So I mean, all the
right.
things.
But Chair, I don't think it would be proper though if I don't lay out certain facts. And I say, yes, I hear the hue and cry hearing about many of these things year after year. Now, there are 4 facilities that we had to make ready. We had to prepare those facilities to have the pilot, for example, the station record management system. We're replacing this manual big book system with connectivity. So you have to ensure that those systems are put in place. Those facilities have been prepared and they are ready to begin the pilot and that station record within another, I think, couple of months, like in June. That will start happening. So it's not about conjecture here. I can tell you specifically.
How many of those will roll out in this year?
19, at minimum of 19, each geographic division, right across the country.
How many stations do you have?
All stations that are connected, Leo, how many?
No. How many police stations do we have island-wide?
Oh, 186.
186.
Right.
And the rollout of the 19 will be for divisional offices?
Divisional headquarters.
And headquarters.
Right.
19 of them?
Yes. And each divisional headquarters will cover all stations within that geographic space.
And what is the time frame to get?
By the end of the year, we should have all 19 head stations.
No. How many? So it's only these 19 stations that will be outfitted with the...
No, more than... All right.
No, so that's what I'm saying. What is the rollout timetable to ensure that majority of this 186 has the upgrade technology?
All right, so we have 19 geographic head stations, and in total we have 45 stations connected now.
When you say connected?
Connected means they have
internet and
not
telephone?
necessarily internet, but network connection, so that it can go back to the server, to the data center.
So how it reach back to the data center without?
No, it does not. So you have internet, but we have our own private network.
You have your own, okay.
Private network, right.
Right.
So it means that for a system to be on the platform,
online,
it has to be connected to our network and secure.
So you have an additional 45 that
right.
will be connected by the end of this year too?
Yes, all connected facilities will be.
So that's 45 plus the 19, or the 19 included in the 45?
No, inclusive of the 45. So it's 19 overall.
Yeah.
45 overall, 19 of which are divisional headquarters.
Okay. So you expect 45 connectivity this year.
Right.
For the 186, what is the timeline? Because you must have a timeline on getting all stations rolled out and connected. Or not all stations will be connected.
All right. I'll provide you with that answer later on, but because the connectivity on these stations, another program that is taking place with another agency.
That's why I asked.
Exactly. So that has been done. But let me just assure you, though, that the fact that a station isn't connected doesn't mean that the incident that occurs in that station will not be on the system.
I understand.
Right.
That.
So it just makes it easier for the police officer rather than the headquarters recording that incident. When you're connected, then the station can record.
But parallel to that,
right.
Is there a training exercise to sensitize?
Certainly. As a matter of fact, significant investment
must be.
on that is why I said to you that in getting to this point, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done behind the scene, including change management, training, establishment of the facility. The PS spoke about making the facility ready and stuff like that. So all of that is done. So we are now at the point where we're starting implementation.
Okay.
So
where are you in the training exercise?
Sorry?
Where are you now? Where's the force now in the training exercise? In getting,
right,
you don't have to wait until it's installed to start training.
We have completed training of trainers. Right. So we have trainers. We have trained our trainers. These trainers now we will implement and train simultaneously. And so these trainers will be hitting
and training
as we go
station.
along. Exactly. So we are down the road with that. I know you mentioned something, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Right, you mentioned something about P-step and order on the road and stuff like that. Earlier I mentioned about the ecosystem within which we operate. And so, I mean, we can show you data. We have the P-step effectiveness it's quantifiable. We can show you result of that. So yes, they have been out there. Notwithstanding that though, the challenge that we have within this public order and road safety ecosystem, unfortunately, it manifests itself with the police. And so we have to take the responsibility and stuff like that. But there's a lot of things that needs to take place to fix it. Thank God some are happening now as we speak. And so one of the things about road safety is the issue of enforcement, in addition to education and engineering. Enforcement. That's what we do, enforce. And we enforce, and we have been enforcing and enforcing more than anywhere else. Every year we issue over 500,000 tickets.
Yeah.
500,000 tickets. But issuing a ticket must mean something to the offender. Must mean something.
I agree.
It hardly means anything when a man has 1,800 tickets and still can do business with the state.
I agree.
This is not because people don't want to do things, not because the judges don't want to issue warrants. It's none of that. It is because of the lack of confidence in our broken system. And that, I don't want to sound like I am going. These things what we're doing are real things that we think about and put solution in place. And so one of the challenge we had with that is our current paper, several points of entry, several points of failure, disconnected system. What have we done in response? Our technology branch, along with eGov, we have developed an e-ticketing system. Right? And what that does, it allows you to issue a ticket right there on the fly. It cuts the time for issuing a ticket by about 80%. It improves the accuracy. It means, therefore, these duplicate paper.
So it is
copies.
now online with
more than online. In the pilot, I want to just give you some numbers.
Because it was one of the proposals that was put forward when the new Road Traffic Act was coming into being, which has not fully been into being.
And so whilst we await that, Mr. Chair, whilst we await that, you see, we push for things that are outside of our control and hope they come to us in time.
Yes.
Whilst doing that, there are things we have to do now, like this. We can do this. So even without not so strong legislation, we can optimize much greater.
And you see, Dr. Blake, we at the committee also, I mean, to come and to haggle over how much money you get from what you don't get. is part of it. But just to what we're speaking of now,
Right.
that even though we have the legislation have been tabled, passed, regulation is in front of us now, there are some things that need to happen before. So it is our responsibility as a PASC also to ensure that these things are put in place.
Exactly.
If not, then it is now for us to bring it back to the House to ensure. So we're not here just to beat on you, we're here also to help the process.
And
I just want to get that clear.
Certainly.
Yeah?
And we appreciate that. And Mr. Chair, I am very elated to get the opportunity to explain some more.
Man.
Because
so we are ahead now
Yes.
with the ticketing system.
Yes.
And it is connected, I think it's supposed to be the Island Traffic Authority.
No, it is, the back end is at our data center.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be connected,
yes,
interconnected.
That's
what I mean.
Yeah, it's a network system. So the beauty about it is, unlike where we're coming from, there's a single point of entry. Very, very, very small opportunity for mistakes or errors and stuff like that. And there is a higher guarantee of the accuracy of the information, so that when our judges make a decision, they can do that in confidence.
And it is now connected to the courts.
And
also.
it is connected. And we are successful, very impressive pilot result we're getting so far, extremely impressive. And I can assure you and the nation that even whilst we await the legislation, that the moment we roll this out right across, then the opportunities for these offenders will be narrowed significantly.
Okay.
And again, this is in a response to the challenge that we have identified with the current system.
Two other members want to follow, but PS, I want to just make a comment on the report itself. On page 3, when you do your breakdown of the estimates of expenditure financial year, you combine these numbers, but it doesn't give us an indication year over year unless we go back to the budget book, right? So if you can just separate them when sending them, all right? Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Blake, do you have performance-based incentive within the force? Because we know that you have instances where you may have a police officer having gone into a particular division may transform the face, everything of that division. You see the numbers going down. You see improved communities. Is there an incentive for such police officers? That's question 1A. The B part to that question, where an officer is proven, not to be performing, on what basis are transfers made? So is there a case where you may have a police officer who in one division he's deemed as a probably non-performer, and as we would say in Jamaican parlance, you fling him down a country, or if he has offended anyone, you're going to take him, and as punishment, you send him go a country, maybe in a constituency like St. Catherine, Northeastern. So that's number 1B. And C, I'm going to act now on behalf of my constituency. The Troja Police Station has been there for a number of years, built, not being used. Why would we invest resources in building a police station, outfitting it, and it is not being used? Where am I? 1B, 2, 1C, yes. Glengough Police Station. They have been agitating for some time. It serves a large area. There are things about Glengough that we are concerned with. I remember Glengough used to win the best community competition. We don't want to see that eroded. We want to have that station at Glengough built, police who are there who are sensitive to the needs of the community, because this is how communities start falling apart, when you don't have the level of authority that's there. Member Hannah she made a very significant point, and thank you, Member Hannah, because I've never thought of it quite like that. The role of women, I've never thought of it that as nurturers with our boys, so that we don't have anybody who said, listen, my mother tortured me. But I have an interesting question to ask, because I'm seeing how women can play a very effective role within the police force. Are there deliberate steps to recruit women in the force? And what is the level, what is the percentage of women who are admitted in the force? Thank you. No more questions for today.
I'll try to remember them and forgive me. Please feel free to remind me of any that I may miss. Incentive. If you're speaking about monetary incentive, I can't recall that there's any. I don't think we have one. However, performance is a part of the decision, one of the variables that goes into the decision in promotion. That's one of it. In addition to that, we have several internal means by which we recognize persons' work through publication in our force orders. We call it commendation. And we're now looking at establishing internal medals. And so that is, don't want to speak much on it because it's something in the making. So we're looking at many of these things in terms of incentives. Commendation, force order publication of commendation is a very critical, a very important part in the decision for promotion. And we have a very objective formula, basically, that we use that incorporates on a weighted average several things. Your examination, your recommendation from your commander, but also the opportunity that you have as an individual to write your own recommendation through our PMAS system. So you determine beforehand what it is going to be. And so with all of those variables, it gives control, a lot more control to the member in terms of their upward mobility and stuff like that. So those factor in, and with respect to incentive. The issue of transfer, we all know the environment within which we work. And as a member of the High Command, I can tell you, it is not the easiest thing when you're making a decision, especially at the commander's level and senior level, how to move people. And so sometimes just what the public may see is a movement of an individual. What they don't see are the number of hours of deliberation and transformation and the discussion and reshuffling that takes place in order to arrive at that. And there are many things that inform it. And every division is ours. Every section of the police force is important. And so the idea of throwing someone somewhere at the risk of seeing the incidents increasing, it is our problem nonetheless. And so we do not necessarily subscribe to that approach any at all. We do have members who we have challenge with in terms of where to place them, suitability. Sometimes it is a matter of the person may not be the best suitable based on what we give them to do, because we have moved persons. We have moved persons, and I must tell you, you have the policing is a field that have several career paths, especially JCF that does so much more than policing. We have over 20 services. Not many police forces does that. And so sometimes we find that persons are better. You may put someone in a division in operation, for example, as a commanding officer, and they seem not to be as effective as you'd want them to be. But then you place them elsewhere, and the person in their natural comfort environment excel. And so a lot of things go into the decision in moving police officers and stuff. But just to indicate that we really don't have the luxury of taking a person who's highly paid taxpayer money and throw him to anything called Never Never Land. We don't even have enough police to do that, much less to do that. So that is not something that we do. You mentioned Troja. I can't speak to it now, but I certainly will look at it. Mr. Clark is here, is in charge of the services branch, under whose branch these facilities fall. But Glengoff is being renovated now as we speak. I personally have visited Glengarve twice in the past 2 weeks, and I had a long meeting yesterday with all the stakeholders and getting a full update, and I try as best as possible to remove every single obstacle in the way of getting Glengarve ready. So much so that we had to take some decision in order to fast-track the project, and it is happening now. So in very short order, you will get a pretty nice modern facility in Glengarve. And so that is in the making. With respect to women and violence and stuff, there's a lot being done. We know that. And the point I was making earlier is that in the communities that are under threat from gangs, all persons are vulnerable. And many of these women are unfortunate victims of a horrible social environment, and we have to fix that. Notwithstanding, we have also deliberately embarked on a program to establish domestic violence intervention center. And so over the last year, we have established 6 such centers across the island. Now, we bring our numbers up now to 10. We have also revamped our domestic violence policy. That was recently redone. Mr. Brooks is in charge of our PRDB, Planning, Research, Development branch, whose responsibility it is to ensure that our policies are relevant and reviewed and stuff like that. So we have just completed that. And we are now establishing our early warning and response system, our ERs. As a matter of fact, I would have had a meeting with our stakeholders today, had it not been for this, in looking specifically at these early warning things. And in domestic violence, the most vulnerable group, women and children mainly, and stuff like that. And there are significant results that we can show. Data exists in terms of our several intervention cases we have dealt with, how it has been. And the DVI Center intervention was under the scope of the ISO audit that was recently at the Matilda's Corner and the Duane Park Police Station. Female recruitment of women. I don't, at the risk of being inaccurate in terms of our approach, I would like to provide that information to you when I speak with the DCP in charge of administration, whose portfolio that falls under. But what I know, though, is that we have had significant, as a matter of fact, we probably have more female applicants than males. In our recent sets of promotions, a number of the women, in a number of the ranks, women have, so that is so. And in policing, there's hardly any distinction when we look at women and suitability. We have commanding officers who are extremely effective. In fact, we have commanding officers and operation officers in some of the toughest areas, and they are women. And we place them wherever, we find them more suitable, right?
Yeah. Excellent. Chair, I must say that I must commend you on the communications aspect. The Wanted Wednesdays, I'm enjoying it. Whomever is dealing with that aspect of it, very effective. In fact, I look forward to the advert. I just don't want to see Member Phillips's picture.
Chair.
But
thank you very much. Thank
you very much. Member Morrison really took some words out of my mouth, because I have here that I really wanted to commend you guys on the public relations aspects and to find out whether or not whether it has impacted arrests so far. Has it aided the police force? I have a number of other questions too, but maybe you can answer that one in the interim.
Thank you very much for your commendation, and rest assured it will be passed on to the team and stuff. And yes, we have seen significant results. Remember, the data around our social media, stuff like that, we analyze it regularly, and we use that to determine who to target, what to do, what is trending, and stuff like that. I wish I had that question before. I would have gladly taken the statistics here to show you. So for example, we look at, when we start a program, we look immediately at the trend, and it's phenomenal. So when we launched the Get All the Guns campaign and the Gunmen campaign, I mean, when you look at the graph and see what is trending, it is just immediately after that. So we see the responses coming in, and the data exists. We can share it.
All right, we're looking forward to that, Doc. Also, I wanted to get a status update on the Jamaica I program, as in where we are with the outfitting of hardware and other infrastructure for the rollout island-wide, because I do believe that it really will have a positive impact in the investigations of the police force. So are we close to full rollout, or are we still not there yet?
Right. We still have quite a bit of ground to cover, right? From when we launched, I think back around 2018, and we had a schedule in terms of the different townships and so on to roll out into. We would have had a setback with COVID, but even during COVID period, we were able to go live, establish in Santa Cruz and the Black River. Those came on board this year, and our next stop in terms of what we are looking at right now is the downtown Kingston area in terms of expansion there, as well as the Stony Hill area. So we have just under $400 million in the budget this year to further to expand the Jamaica I program. So we recognize this as a significant we call it force multiplier in terms of the effect it can have. And so we are diligently moving apace in terms of strategically looking at the different locations that we will move in. But like I said before, we will be expanding in downtown, and I think we also have Stony Hill. And there are some other areas that we have which we will seek to roll out into later in this fiscal year and into the year ahead. But there's no slowing down in terms of our rollout with the Jamaica I.
Okay. I want to now touch those internal personalities within the JCF that hinder the productivity of the force by themselves perpetrating crimes. How are we addressing those internal persons? What is being done? I realized recently that I've been hearing and seeing of arrests of police officers, but what more is being done to prevent them from continuing in that space?
All right. As an operational matter there, I leave that to Dr. Blake.
Again, I thanks for the question. It weighs heavily on us when our members are found on the wrong side of the law. Nobody likes that. What we can assure, though, is a commitment that we have to separate these members from our midst and pursue them. What I believe is most profound, and I hope provides this assurance, is that we are the ones. We don't wait other agencies or other stakeholders to find these individuals, investigate them, and put them before the court. We gladly do that. Again, I made the point that we are twice concerned. We are concerned as citizens, who each and every one of us but we are also concerned as police officers, because this is what we do. This is our profession. And we know that every time that a member falters, unfortunately, the perception each of us have to live with that, because this is what goes out. This is what goes out. So again, we mentioned we just recently completed our ISO 9001 certification. It will take effort to let the public understand what that is, because it is good news. A single member goes out and commits himself, zero effort. And so we have to guard our reputation. We have to guard this. And we have to ensure that our aim is to have zero of that. Notwithstanding, we're talking about an organization with several thousand people. Among that, with the best of systems that we have, are persons who have ill intent. Our responsibility is to ensure that even those with ill intent do not have the opportunity. Right? One of our objectives is to ensure that we can bring people in with ill intent, have them serve throughout their career with ill intent, and leave honorable with their ill intent, because there's never an opportunity to execute that. And so that guides how we set up our accountability structure. And that's why we invest so much in places like iProbe. And so, you know, we don't have the luxury of frustration, but it does weigh on us sometimes when we see these things happen. What we ask for the public, though, is just for the confidence that we, and the assurance that we will, and we are committed to ensure that we leave no stone unturned to remove these members from among our, a criminal is a criminal. Doesn't matter what uniform they put on. And they'll be treated even harsher, and should be treated way, way harsher. You are persons who are paid by the taxpayers and by the stakeholder in order to provide security. You have no business. And so these persons have to decide which side of the fence they're on. And we wish we had stronger legislation that is separate from legislation that deals with the normal citizen, who is not paid by the taxpayer to uphold the law. So when you take that, it's twice betrayal. And that is our sentiment. And I'm sure this is a shared sentiment of probably more than 90% of the members of the force. If you listen to the discussion that takes place on the ground, when things like these happen, you realize how much it hurts.
You know, the benefit you have, Dr. Blake, is having the permanent secretary who just heard what you said about the legislation, who has the ear of the minister, because certainly you would get support from, certainly me, yeah? Because be there in a uniform or a suit and sit down inside, you're a criminal, is a criminal, and ought to be dealt with.
Exactly.
I concur with that, Chair.
Yeah. Chair, so Dr. Blake, you're putting it on record that what you're asking Parliament to do, legislators to do, is to ensure or craft something, put it into law, where when a police officer becomes the criminal, and because that police officer is paid, there should be something to hold him not just accountable, but the penalty ought to be more severe than it had been had it been a regular civilian. Is that what you're putting out there, Dr. Blake?
Probably far better articulated than I could have, what I'm asking for, and I'll leave that for the policymakers, what I'm asking for and what I believe, and I am sure that all my colleagues share the same view, that there should be a higher level of accountability, a higher level of consequence when you betray your office and the people that pay you. When you betray your country, there should be no love. And so I know this is not the place for that formal request as you have articulated. I just want the records to show that because we are twice concerned as police officers, we believe that nothing should be spared to bring these persons to justice. And we do all that we can do with the tool that we have.
And that goes for legislators too.
Certainly.
Chair, I have two more questions, if
sure,
possible.
Go ahead.
I'm going to the DCS's report.
I don't think the DCS
team
is not here. No.
They're not here?
No.
Oh.
No, sorry.
Yeah, because I mean...
I know. We will have to bring them back at a later date.
But maybe from a security standpoint, in terms of the probation orders, why I'm going there is because my mother worked with the DCS before she retired. And I remember having to go to office with her all the time and being involved in the work that she did. And at that time, we would see quite a bit of persons who were given probation orders out there doing work in the communities. But I don't see that anymore. I'm not sure if there is a reduction in orders, probation orders being given within the courts, or is it that we have abandoned that system altogether? I don't know from a ministry perspective what the policy is.
No, I wouldn't say abandon of that system, but I'm not equipped right now in terms of having the information to respond to that. But as the chair said, certainly in response to those matters concerning the DCS, we will provide those responses at the appropriate time.
All right, not a problem.
All right, I just have two last light questions. The update on the used car, have we received all of them?
No, we haven't received all of them as yet, but since this year, over the past month, we'll have received an additional 12.
How many outstanding?
Let me try to recall the numbers now. I think, no, I don't want to give an incorrect figure here, but we received 12 because we have entered into an extension of the arrangement we had with O'Brien for them to deliver all the cars, I think, by the end of June.
But it seems like a moving target because we have been...
No, remember, the agreement we had in terms of, I'm trying to, the term is eluding me now in terms of the specific term that we had called it, the arrangement, and that had expired last year.
Yes.
It expired from early last year. So after the expiration, things were pretty much like in abeyance. So we re-engaged them and signed up a new agreement in terms of delivery. And based on that, all are to be delivered by the end of June.
In that agreement, there's no additional cost to the taxpayers?
No. There's no additional cost.
None at all?
No additional cost.
All right. Can at least we get an update on the process itself to be sent to us at the committee?
Okay, I can do that, indicating how many have been delivered and the remaining.
And the time frame, the extension that has been given, all right? Because this has been lingering too long. And when we speak about one Jamaica for some and another for others, in a sense that this contract itself, there has been a clear breach of contract, but we keep moving the goalpost to satisfy. While others would be treated differently. And, I am uncomfortable with that in itself, that we keep on moving the goalposts to satisfy the supplier himself when others would be dealt with differently by the ministries itself and departments and agencies. So, and this is going on nearly, 3 years now? If so long? If so short, really. It's been a while. So, I don't think that this is something that we should just accept that we have gone into a new agreement. But why are we at this point is an issue. And I like to use data and research to tell us basically how not to make the same mistakes ever again. All right? So if you can send a report, PS, I think we'd appreciate that.
I will do. While saying the situation now is better than it was a year ago.
It cannot be, PS.
No.
It cannot be.
Respectfully, Mr. Chair, respectfully. No. A year ago, 6 months ago, in the same committee.
Yes, this contract has been in limbo from 2018. It cannot be a situation that is better.
No, Mr. Chair, I'm saying last year, October, when I was in this committee, and at that time, I was not in a position to tell you if and when the cars will be delivered. What I'm saying to you now, since that time, 12 vehicles have been delivered. We have a schedule for the delivery, and that schedule, I tell you where it is. I tell you, I'll also provide you with a report confirming the exact date for those, and where. I'm saying relative to where we were a year ago, it's
process,
a better.
But we're not in a better place. The process is moving, but we're not in a better place.
No, I'm going to say, relative to where we were a year ago, where all these cars are outstanding, since that time, things have moved.
I'll await your report. This is really for the officers. Zones of special operations. Last time that the minister was here giving a report, and the reports that are tabled in the parliament itself, it gives you an overall of the social work that is being done. And I asked the question then, and as I'll ask you now, how is it that we gauge the success of these zones of operation outside of, because when you look at your numbers, the police numbers that have been presented to us, they come in as special, a certain geographic, a policing area, but not taking out the zone itself to tell us the information, how many gangs have been broken up, or how many persons we have arrested, what the numbers, the shooting numbers in that zone, the murder numbers in that zone. Do we have that information broken down separate from the policing area? And how do we gauge the success of these zones?
Thank you for that, Chairman. The zones of special operations remain a significant fillip towards our violence reduction program. The data that you require will have to be put together. On the face of it, though, the zones have been in a much better position than they were before they were declared. We are seeing a general trending down of violence and crimes in general in those areas. The clear, hold, and build strategy remains intact. There have been incidents in one or two of them that we have responded to effectively. And so we are prepared to look at our progress in those areas and update the committee in good time.
I'd appreciate it, because the police is like us as parliamentarians. When there's a problem, they don't want to know how we're going to get to the point of solution. They want us to deal with it. So that's why, Dr. Blake, I said what I said before, More things change, more it remains the same. So even though we may put in the back-end work, what persons want are solutions. How do we deal with the murder rate? How is it that we deal with the chaos on the road? They don't care how much we do in the back end. And if we are not if they are not seeing tangible results, then no matter how much work you have done, we have not succeeded, right? And that's why I ask even the breakdown of the ZOSOs, because I don't know if it is a migration of the criminals. Are they still around? How many of those violent producers that were in those zones have we arrested? Until I see the data, I really don't know if we have succeeded, because the aspect of putting in infrastructure, for me, is something that we shouldn't have to wait until a zone that we put in those infrastructures in these communities. So I can't gauge the success of a zone of special operation on that aspect. I want to know the part about the violent producers and how it is that we have disrupted them and their operations, that I can then, and I'm sure many Jamaicans would say that we are spending these resources, we have these zones that we have then now succeeded in our efforts. So that's why I asked for that breakout, and I have not been able to see it anywhere. So if it can be produced, I would appreciate
certainly,
it.
Mr. Chair, we'll provide you that information. We can provide you with the crime statistics in these spaces. The success at the zone of special operations, though, must be tied directly with the objective of such endeavor. It is not solely around crime reduction, it is changing the space, the social space right there. And that's why certain infrastructure, social intervention, stuff like that are important.
But it has to be with crime reduction.
Yeah, crime reduction is
as
part.
Your major part.
So in assessing the success of a zone of special operation, in addition to looking at the crime reduction in the space, we have to look at other things. So and that's why it's a multi-agency thing.
No,
but we can provide you that aspect of it. We can provide you that aspect of it from the.
Appreciate it. But you understand my concern.
Certainly, we do understand that.
Right.
I just want to make another point, just a clarity on.
Have to.
And you had mentioned around the back end and the effect and the results on the ground.
Yeah.
You are perfectly correct, and that's one of the reasons why I said that a lot that happens in the back end, you don't really see it. I understand. However, there's a deliberate. It's not building the back end and then do policing. And so let me give you an example. For example, one of the things that you see on the transformation pillar is the response capability and fit for purpose vehicles and stuff like that. That is in direct response to the emergence of criminal activity and criminals operating on motorcycles and eluding the police through the busy traffic. Since that, so if you look at the thing here, you would see an expenditure for things like motorcycles and fit for purpose uniform and training. And so in deliberate response, which is one of the back end thing, is to establish that quick response capability. And we have done that, and you've seen the result of it. So much of these things that happen in the back end have real tangible results almost immediately. However, there are some, like the case management system, that requires immense preparation. You will see the benefit of it down the road and stuff. So we are mindful that whilst we have to fly the plane and fix it at the same time. We haven't stopped any of those things. I just want to make that point to assure you.
I'm sure, just like us here, we want to see an orderly and respectable and law-abiding society. And I think that, we make gains and then we see it eroded because of we have not been able to hold it. And I think that is what is frustrating both, I'm sure, from the JCF and for us as legislators too, because we see it in our schools, we see it in our communities, and it is heart-wrenching. So we are here to partner with you, but again, just like our constituents want to see results, I'm sure the rest of Jamaica want to see results.
And I am and let me just finally from me, hopefully, Mr. Chair, that what I am taking away from this and what I've seen is the level of intolerance that we have to continue in this situation.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I have also seen and heard in the questions themselves a demonstration of the understanding of the problem.
Yeah.
I've also seen from both sides a commitment to resolve it and the know-how. And so collectively, I don't think we should fail. Collectively, I don't think we should, and I don't think failure or even the luxury of frustration is there. I may sound that way. We can't afford to be frustrated. We probably just passionate about what we do and things. So I tell
you, maybe because we had all women here today, the level of questioning was different than I've ever experienced inside here.
Are we welcome it?
I'm sure Sir Williams, who have been here before, I see hair growing on his head now. Seeing that is a different level of questioning. But we have to end now. I really want to thank the team, and let me apologize again for the members that are here for starting so late. I'm sure we'll have to come back again later down in the financial year once the budget start kicking in, to get an update on the operations and some of the things that you have mentioned. And next time we'll ask PS to bring DCS also, because we haven't been able to touch their report. So thanks again. And also on what we have asked, if we could get a report on the Jamaica Eye also. And I want, in that report, it's connectivity to deal with traffic management. Because we see the cameras, and then you pass for hours the same location as still seeing. How is it that it helps, and that in connectivity with traffic management is also, if you can add that to the report. Sure. All right, members, is there anything else you want to add to any follow-up reports? No? All right.
But Chair, before, sure. Let me just also thank the team, including your team behind the scene who would have done a lot of the back-end work.
Yes. Hence we got the results today.
To ensure we can get this.
All right, members, we're running behind time. There's another meeting that is supposed to, so I move for the adjournment. At the next meeting, which is next week, we will then go through some of the items that we didn't, which is the schedule. So I think we have JUTC next week. We have JUTC next week. The following week is the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, looking at the current budget and thing. And then we then schedule for other meetings. All right. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.